All right, guys, welcome to Luxury Vaping 102. Today, we're going to go into much more depth about talking about the kick. Now, if at any time you have no idea what I'm talking about and I'm talking over your heads, that is because you don't belong in this class and you need to go back to the 101 classes before you go ahead and ask any questions, okay? A lot of your questions might be answered over there before, you can move on to this. All right, so for those of you who've been keeping up with all of the videos, this is the stuff that you've been waiting for. All right, so let's talk about the kick, okay? What is the kick? Really quick, right? It makes regular items into a regulated device, right? So you take any regular mech mod that doesn't have any circuitry. You know how every time they try to explain, oh, it's a mech mod and it doesn't have any circuitry in there. Well, this is the circuitry that we add into it to make it, a regulated device. So why do we want to even make it a regulated device peg? Why don't we just, build exactly the coil we want and then, just be done with it? Well, there's a lot of different reasons to it. Okay, now sure, you could go ahead and go ahead and vape without the kick, all right, and then you already know how to build your coils to exact heat that you want. You already know how to build, like, to 1.4. You know which gauge, you know what kind of wire to use, and you know how many wraps and how to put that together. However, what you still won't get if you use the kick and then put it to like a 1.4 setting of equal wattage, right, is that you still won't get that power regulation, which means each hit, each fire button that you hit, okay, is going to be more balanced from beginning to end, right? Because if you didn't use this thing, right, what would happen is that, like, your first couple of hits is going to, fire hard, and then it's going to just start gradually getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and you're going to feel that curve. As opposed to using circuitry, you will not feel as much of that curve. You see what I'm saying? So even if you're still vaping, the same kind of power, right? Vaping regulated is exactly what it means to vape regulated. Now, there's also something else that I need to show you guys. Okay. If you watch the K-Fun episode, right, you'll notice that, like, I went ahead and I built my resistance to 2.8. Okay, and on the Ohm's law calculator over here, let's say we vape at somewhere around like 10 watts, which is a reasonable, amount of heat. So if we had to calculate this, what happens is that the voltage is 5.2. Okay, now also you'll notice that other pro builders like to build things somewhere right in between, like 1.4 to 1.8. Okay, so let's just say it was 1.4, and then we want the same kind of power at 10 watts. When we calculate over here, right, you'll see the voltage is 3.7. 3.7 is more of the nominal power that batteries operate at. Okay, so what does this tell us? This tells us actually that, like, okay, if I use a 2.8 resistance to vape at 10 watts, all right, it's going to crank my battery to, like, 5.2. It's going to pulse it up that high. Okay, so if let's say we're both using the same battery, right, a 2000 milliamp and a 2000 milliamp. Well, because I'm cranking up my battery to, like, 4.29 over here, I'm actually going to get less milliamps, right? While operating at 3.7 over here, okay, it's probably going to get, the 2000 milliamps that's promised. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm draining my battery faster than somebody else would. So why would I do something like that? Well, in order to understand this, right, we need to go back to a video that I created before about coil building, okay? So let me just, be quiet for a second and let's watch this thing for the important part of it. All right, so with me here are two separate atomizers that I've set up, okay? And they're both at the same ohms, and one is a single coil and one is a dual coil. Okay, this is just for the sake of understanding canthols. Now, by now, you should already know that the lower the gauge the canthol, the lower the ohms that you're going to get. So basically, it's saying the thicker the wires that you use, the hotter it's going to get, right? Okay, so over here, I have something clocking it at 0.7, right? Single coil setup. Now, I'm going to remove this and then show you the dual coil over here. And then we'll see what this one is clocking in at. Also 0.7, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is that, do you guys already know which one's going to light up faster? So I'm going to screw one in on a stainless steel mod, and then this is my other stainless. So this is a nemesis and a magneto. This is just two stainless steel mods that I have, so it's as fair as possible. Okay, so I'm going to light them all at the same time, right? So 1, 2, 3, go. You see the dual coil light up much faster than the single coil did. Okay, this is exactly the point that I'm trying to make, all right? So when I purposely go ahead and get that 2.8 atomizer, okay, what happens is that I have a lighter coil in there. True, I'm using more voltage, but when I fire my battery, I get instant performance. While if you were to, just leave it at the 3.7 because you built a 1.4 coil, when you fire it up, it's going to kick in, you know what I mean? As opposed to my build where I fire the button, it kicks in immediately. Now, you could go ahead, right? Like, let's say, because if you have a genuine evolved kick from these people, all right, then it could fire down the kick 2, not the kick 1, okay? The kick 2 can go all the way down to 0.5 ohms. So let's just say over here, okay, let's bring up another ohms law calculator, and let's say we built it to something more reasonable, 0.7. Right? Okay, 0.7 ohms, and then we wanted to vape this thing at 10 watts, right? Right. So what happens is that the voltage would be 2.6. So it wouldn't put that much of a strain on the battery, and your 2000 milliamp hours can go on for a little bit longer. However, every time you fire the button, you know what I mean? It's not going to have the quick, nimble, like, it's just going to light up, light up, light up. So it depends what kind of vape that you want. You know what I mean? So for those of you out there who understand cars, if I ask you, like, well, how fast does a car go, right? You can't just, in terms of like horsepower, because speed is in terms of like, the weight of the car, the horsepower, the torque, like all those factors like go into it together. So don't go on and just assume that like, oh, he's doing 10 watts and he's doing like 12 watts and then blah, blah, like that. Actually, two people can both be vaping at 10 watts, but they're receiving two different kinds of performance. You see what I'm saying? This also explains why that when you go ahead and wrap a coil, okay, let's say you only have like 26 or 24 gauge wire, right? But you're trying to make something like, 1.5 ohm or something like that. Well, your wire is too thick. So in order to do that, you're going to have to do more reps. Do not take 24 gauge and do like, 20, 25 reps to try to make that, non-sub ohm build, as opposed to like just go ahead and buy like 30 or 28 gauge Canthal and then, just hit your mark with a few reps. Because what happens is that like you're going to retard the build. Do you see what I'm saying? What happens is that like, yeah, your ohm readers, your numbers or whatever, it's all going to read out the same way. However, the reaction of like every time when you fire the button, it's going to be either or, you know what I mean? So that's, if you could follow what I'm saying on that. So this is exactly why I purposely build 2.8. People were like, why do you build it so high? It's so ridiculous. That's because when I fire my button, mine reacts right away because, I really don't care about the milliamp hours. I have so many chargers and batteries in front of me that like, I'm just gonna switch it out really quick anyways after a couple of hits. So I don't mind going ahead and draining my battery that way. If I was to, go on like, between like a business trip or travel or something like that, and I want my battery to last as long as it should last, then yeah, I probably would, sacrifice the speed performance and just go ahead and build like a 1.4 coil. Okay, so again, hope you've learned something and taken something with you out of this class, and I'll see you at the next one. All right, take care, guys.